Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another long tier list. As we are in another category that has a lot of entries, and that is line infantry. As you can see, a lot of nations have a lot of line infantry, so we have a lot of work ahead of us again. And before we jump in there, a quick shout out to WARNO League Season 3, guys. Take your chances to sign up right now. Sign up is closing soon. The games start next week, and if you want to get into competitive gameplay, this is the best option too. No matter if you're a super high level player, high on rank, or a new player, because League is split into 4 divisions, each faced for a specific skill set. Division 1 for the best of the best, Division 4 for new players. So everybody is welcome. You will get competitive action going over the next couple of weeks and have a fun time there. Check out the sign up and the basic rules in the description down below. And more information about all of that on the weekend, guys. And let's jump into the tier list here. Starting with the Belgians, we do it by nations this time around, as I found that would be the best way here to go through this. And we start with the Mech Fusiliers. I will try to ignore the transports that they come in for the most part for all of these units. It's not fully possible because you always have to see them a bit in that, but I will mostly calculate based on what the unit brings themselves. Mech Fusiliers is a pretty solid unit. What makes them a pretty solid unit is that they have 3 MGs on a 7-man squad, and that for 40 points is quite nice. The law is a weak one, but the 40 points is a relatively cheap price point, and getting 3 MGs at that point, 2 light MGs and 1 medium, is really nice. The firepower of these guys is really high for 7 men, and 40 points is a pretty fair price point. The Mech Fusiliers RL83, they have a slightly better weapon with the Plintacite RL83 against vehicles, but they lose the MG. And it's the same price. The AT weapon still doesn't kill anything with only 40 and pen, and losing the MG is actually pretty big here. I don't think it's a bad unit, but I would put it into B tier here. Like, that's a pretty solid unit still. 2 MGs, 5-man squads, has an AT weapon. 40 points, that's pretty fine, but it's not great anymore. Meanwhile, the Mech Fusiliers are really good against infantry, and they have an AT weapon, which stuns enemy vehicles and can one-shot lighter vehicles, and that's the important part there. In general, AT weapons on the Belgians, not great, as they have the old law with only 11 pen. The Para Commando, our next unit here, has that issue as well. And it only has 1 MG. And that's not great for a 50-point unit. It has shock. It has a light machine with the machine gun with the mini-me, so it can use that in CQC. It's a 8 hit point squad. In general, I would put that into C tier territory though. Like, that is not quite the rate you want to be at. You only get 1 hit point more than these guys, but you trade that against MGs. And yeah, you can't super use the shock without engineer trade weapons and so on either. So the shock is not of a major importance here. And then we have the Power Commando with an RL, and that costs you 10 points more for the Plintacite RL 100. That is a pretty good AT weapon, good range, 18 pen, decent accuracy, but paying 10 points extra for that AT weapon is also not getting you anywhere. 60 points for these guys with only 1 MG and only 8 hit points is not great. It is a functional unit, like, you can use them, but Mnet by now has a lot better infantry in my eyes, so yeah, these guys going into C tier here. Pioneers with the RL83 next. That is a weird unit as well. It has 2 more hit points than the guys up here, but it doesn't have any MGs. It has Uzis instead. As a Pioneers, it's supposed to be a CQC unit. It has a decent AT weapon as well with the 83 Plintacite, but the Uzis are unfortunately pretty bad submachine guns, so even in CQC the damage output of these is not great, so I think it's another CT unit. The 9 hit points is solid, but the damage output here is not great. The Prévôt is the military police with security trade. You don't really need the military police in these decks too much. And in general, I would say military police are C tier kind of units as well. You sometimes take them for the trade, and it's pretty cheap, and you can use them as like pseudo recon with the security trade, but they're not amazing. The security trade helps out quite a bit though. The reservists are 35.9 man squadron, and they're basically the same as the Pioneer L, but with reservist trade and with a machine gun. So they at least have a bit of decent firepower on the mid range, though. That's a nice thing, and they are 15 points cheaper. They have the reservist trades, which usually is 5 to 10 points, and they don't have the shock trade, which is another 5 points. So the price somewhat makes sense, but I would say these guys actually for 35 points are decently competitive. Like 35 points, that's a really cheap unit, and 9 hit points for that. That's nice. That's a spammable unit that, like, yes, the damage output might not be great, but that doesn't change anything about the survivability of a unit if it has reservist or not. They still take as much damage to kill off, and this is a unit that you can put in front of other things just to be your meat shield, kind of. And at 35 points, that starts to be efficient. So, yeah, reservists here coming in as a solid B tier reservist unit, doing exactly what they need to do, having an option of having an AT weapon and giving up a bit of a fight if the enemy runs onto them in the flank, and otherwise just being the meat shield that you need your reservist units to be. Then we come to these Germans, starting with the Fallschirmjägers, which are a special force unit, and they are pretty strong. The special forces gives them a good bit extra killing power. They have a good AT weapon, and they come with forward deploy. They only have one light machine gun with 8 hit points, but with a good AT weapon, and especially with the special forces, that gives them a decent bit of firepower. I would put them into higher B tier here with the forward deploy, good AT weapon, 18 pen, good range there on the RPG. So yeah, I would put that into B tier. The Fallschirmjäger Medis, they are still priced for the old abilities of the Medis. The Medis are still not terrible, but by now it's usually a 5-point jump, and this time here it's a 10-point jump still to the Fallschirmjäger. So I think they're worse. I think they're low B tier. The Medis still can be a nice thing to have from time to time, but it's not amazing here. And then we have the Fallschirmjäger SMG, and they are around here as well because they have a good bit weaker AT weapon, which the 18 pen one is pretty important because that one-shots a lot of IFVs as it hit one-shots for frontal armor vehicles. So that's a key factor there. And these guys only have a RPG 18 with 13 pen, and they only have 3 PKMs and 4 MGs. The 3 PKMs is what you buy them for, but the issue is they have 1 less hit point than the normal Fallschirmjäger and Fallschirmjäger Medis. So yeah, the trade-off there is not great. Plus PKMs you can't use on the move. So for Fallschirmjägers with special forces trade, that's not great either, because that's usually something you want to use aggressive, and you can't do that with these guys. So, and defensive special forces with low hit points, that means that they get killed off by artillery and autocannons quite quickly. All not amazing, but still, it is a special forces unit there that is pretty solid. So, in the end, let's put them into high C tier here. Actually, that's where I would put them. KDA Schützen, still a chunky squad, 14 strength, and yeah, reservists, it has an AT weapon. It isn't as OP as it had been in the past. I would put it into solid B tier here still. Like, that's still a unit that you take. And if you get military police around them, they do a fantastic job still. If not, they get stressed out super quickly, but then there are still 14 guys that the enemy has to choose through. And like, yeah, getting 5 more hit points for 10 points here in comparison to the reservists is quite solid. The AT weapon is terrible, so it's weaker than this guy, so that's another 2.5 to 5 points that this is worthwhile difference, I guess. But still, KDA Schützen, like, you get a lot of manpower for your buck, and that's the key part there. That makes them pretty solid. Then we have the next special forces, and that's the Luftsturmjäger. And that are basically Fallschirmjägers. Like, instead, they're an 8-man squad with the exact same stats without the forward deploy. Forward deploy usually 5 points. So here it's 10 points different. So as an infantry unit, think the Luftscharmjäger is actually amazing. Issues, the transport here for these guys, but we don't calculate that here. And they only come in a helicopter, and the helicopter is relatively pricey. But if you can sell the helicopter, then you have a really cost-efficient unit on the front line. If the enemy can't shoot down the Mi-8 transport of these guys, these are amazing from a cost efficiency standpoint, and just as a fighting force. 55 points for RPG, 7 VL, 8 men, special force, shock, infantry. Like, yeah, they just do it. Luftsturmjägers are great. Would even put them in front of the mech Fusiliers here. Then Luftsturmjäger Medis. They are only 5 points more expensive. So I would put them around here as well. Like, that's the 5 points difference that I would want to see between these two guys as well. Luftsturmjäger Medis are solid as well. Really good unit. Militärstreife, same as the Privat. Not much difference here. They have the Scorpion. Not a great gun. So yeah, they go there. And then we have the Mordschützen. And the Mordschützen have the East German bonus of normal infantry having Resolute. That is really nice, giving them a good bit more damage over time against other infantry because they get stressed out a bit less. Plus 2 MGs. They only are a 7-man squad. They are 45 points. If we remember here, this is a 7-man squad as well. 5 points cheaper with an extra MG over these guys. The Mordschützen have the better RPG, and they have the Resolute. But I would still put them behind this in 8 here. Wait, what did I just pull? I pulled the wrong guys. Mordschützen it is. Mordschützen here going into 8 here. A solid unit, but not the best out there. Mordschützen's Rella is the next. No, Mordschützen BTR is the next, sorry. That's a decent unit as well. Has an extra hit point. Pays for it though, with 5 points. Not quite the rate you want. Like, one guy is usually around 3.5 to 4 points worth. So 5, it's a bit weaker in my eyes. For most units, that is the case. For just an extra, if it would be an extra MG, it would be big. And then it's like 6 to 7 points worth, is my calculation there. And then it would be a nice buff. This way around, it's a slight nerf, but not a major one. So yeah, they go around here. Then we have the Mordschützen Medis. They still paid 10 extra points. We talked about that. But they are also 8 hit points. So no, they actually pay 5 points. Sorry, mistake by me. Mordschützen BTR is what they upgrade from. So yeah, it's around the same. They are pretty fine. 10 points over the normal Mordschützen. So that's a good rate as well there for the infantry on its own. Then we come to the Mordschützen with RPG 27. They pay extra for the AT. That is not quite worth it, because the RPG 27 has better pen, sure, but it has lower range than the RPG 7VL, and the difference between 500 and 675 is pretty big, and the 3 pen is not really an upgrade on that trade. It's more of a trade-off, more of a side. So paying 5 points extra means that this thing, actually, I would even put it into B tier on its own. Thing is, though, they come with BMP2, so that makes it a good unit in combination, but the infantry inside, it's a B tier unit here for the Mordschützen. And with the RPG 27. Then we come to the SMG Mordschützen. Those are 7-man squads. They have an RPG 18, but yeah, it's a 7-man squad as well, just like the normal Mordschützen. It pays 5 points extra though, so it pays the same as these guys. It trades 1 man for the extra MG, and it's a medium machine gun, so a bit more damage there, but it also has a weaker AT weapon and so on. So these, I don't quite feel. I would put them actually even a bit further behind because of the price and the 1 less hit point and so on. That pays quite badly. Like the difference between really efficient and only okay infantry, like that's a big quick jump here. Like the margin of error here is not high with infantry because they are all so close together. Like, the price categories are still relatively close together. It's way better than in Steel Division 2, where everything was bunched between the 15 and the 40 point, and most units between 20 and 30 points. But it's still not a massive room here for units. And if they're just 5 points overpriced as an infantry, that's a lot. Mordschützen Strela is a pretty good unit, as it kind of replaces your AA, as they now have AT weapons as well. So you don't need to invest into AA when you bring these guys around. They still have 2 rifles, still an 8-man squad. So they are up here with the normal Mordschützen, maybe even ahead of it. Like, it's 1 extra man and the Strela, a weaker AT weapon, but the AT plus AA combo is really strong. And yeah, the Strela is not the most amazing AA missile, but it's a good missile. So yeah, Mordschützen Strela goes up here. And then we have the Mordschützen SVD, which are an 8-man squad as well, and they get an SVD. That's a nice buff. SVD is really important, stuns units quite quickly, so for 5 points extra, I take the SVD here as well, and I would put that up here as well. The Strela and the SVD, in my eyes, the best ones. It's pretty close together, but yeah, the East Germans here with really solid infantry in that regard. Then we have the Panzerjägers. Issue with the Panzerjägers is they have a 7-man squad, they have Resolute, they have 2 AT weapons, which can be quite nice. Issue is they have low range AT weapons. Like, with these tank hunters, you usually want the long range AT weapons because then you can really murder things. We will get to those later on. But with the Panzerjägers, you only can really use them in forests, and then it doesn't really matter because other AT weapons will stun enemies down there as well. So I would put these guys into C tier. You take them from time to time if you feel like it, and you have some infantry weak AT weapons that you put in your deck. Then these can be nice in forced fights and so on, but it's not really a unit that you need. So actually, I would put them behind here even. And then Reservisten is the next one. That is a pretty decent squad. It is 45 points, so same as the Mordschützen. It has 2 LMGs as well. It has a weaker RPG, but it has 2 more hit points. It doesn't have the Resolute trait though, but in general, that is a pretty good squad as well. Like, yeah, I would put them in high B tier. The Resolute doesn't matter, but yeah, the 9 hit points for actually no, let's put them into lower B A tier here even. 9 hit points. It has an RPG with decent range, but not the greatest pen. But 9 men with 2 MGs, that's pretty nice there, without Reservist trait here, even though they're called Reservisten. Reservisten SMG. That doesn't have an AT weapon, it's only a 6-man squad. That is pretty bad. Don't take these guys. Like, if they would have a light AT weapon, they would be pretty good flank, because of 3 MGs, they can stop enemy infantry and so on the defense, but they can't be that roadblock. They need something else next to them. And with only 6 men, you can't really take them as frontline fighting material and so on. So yes, the 3 MGs are a decent amount of firepower, but it's also the medium machine guns that you get as here with the PKMs for these MG squads. So yeah, not great there. Then we got Sicherungs, and they had been OP in the past. Now they're not so great anymore. They were 35 points. They were super busted then. 5 points difference makes a lot of difference here. Now 40 points. They're a 7-man squad like Mordschützen, but they have 1 less MG. They have the security trait, but they have a weaker AT as well. So yes, they are a bit cheaper. I would put them here around the Reservistas. They're still pretty fine, and they are in a decent combo, but it's not amazing. Then we have the Phobos. They go around here. And then we have Wachschützen Panzerjägers. They have Shock Trait and Scorpions. If the Scorpion would be a bit better, or the squad would be a bit bigger, then you could use them really as a shock troop as well. Unfortunately, the Scorpion sucks, and this is a 6-man squad, so you don't really want to push them into infantry fight. And then you have the weak AT weapons here as well. And yeah, I would put them next to the other Panzerjägers. Like both really situational unit and not really something you want. If the SMG would be a bit better than the Scorpion, it would be actually quite nice. Then Wachschützen, good AT, SVD, 1MG, 60 points is really pricey now though. When they were 55 points, I like them. 10 hit points is really good, but and the SVD is nice as well. But 60 points is also pretty expensive, and that moved them, like before they were A tier material. I think that moved them down to low B tier. Like I would put them around the Fallschirmjäger Medis. Yeah, in front of the KDA Schützen. They still have a good amount of traits. They still have Sicherungs and so on. They can be good on the flank as well, but they have fallen off from the cost efficiency standpoint, and that's a bit of a shame for this division, because in Berlin Command you really want cost-efficient infantry because it doesn't have that much else to offer. Like Strela and Mordschützen SVD, when they were 5 points cheaper as well, which they were in the past, they were absolute S-tier infantry. And Wachschützen were up here in A tier as well. Now they have all fallen off a bit from grace. That brings us to the French here. Where else do we have to put one German down to the Germans? And French have an interesting setup here as well, starting with the Airmobile. That brings an Apilas to the table, which is an amazing AT weapon. And it only has 1 MG though. It's a 10-man squad, that is nice. It can take a good amount of damage, and it has the Apilas, which is nice as well. Transport with helicopter and so on can be nice in a niche, but that's not what we really calculate here. So with the rest, the Apilas is great, but the infantry fighting capabilities of it are not amazing. The AANF medium machine gun is not great either. It doesn't have any traits or so. So I would only put them here into higher C tier, thanks to the Apilas that carries them pretty hard. Like that is just such a good launcher. So Chasseurs next. They have a sniper rifle. They are an 8-man squad, 450 points. So they're kind of like Mordschützen, a bit of a weaker AT weapon, but they have a hit point more. And I would put them next to the Mordschützen SVD here. Like that's a high A tier unit. Chasseurs are really nice. The sniper rifle was a massive buff to them as an infantry unit. The RCL with 750 meter range, it doesn't have the highest pen, but it does stun down enemies. Enemy vehicles that come close by get stunned, potentially killed. And yeah, it does its job there as well. So A tier here for the Chasseur. Chasseur Para is the next one. That only has an RCL as well. It's kind of the same unit as the normal Chasseur, but it doesn't have the sniper rifle. It's a 10-man squad, but it doesn't have the sniper rifle, and it has a mediocre AT weapon as well, the RCL, and for 60 points, like, yes, you get the forward deploy, so that's why this is the same as the Airmobile, but in general, I would put it around there as well. The forward deploy and so on is all nice and all, but it's not really carrying them. And then we have the Command de l'Air. That's a special force unit. Their AT weapon is actually pretty bad, the Wasp 58, but they have all the traits. They have shock, they have security, they have special forces, they have even the IFV trait, they have forward deployment. They cost you 80 points, so that is expensive. But they're a 9-man squad with a sniper rifle and all those traits and the forward deployment. And that kind of carries them here. Like with the sniper rifle, I would put them here as an infantry unit into A tier as well. I think like we put them a bit ahead of these guys. And yeah, I still think the Luftschirmjägers are a bit better just because they're so much cheaper. 25 points there. If you compare that, like Luftschirmjäger still has the better AT, has 1 less man, which is, but it has 2 LMGs. This one has only 1 LMG and a sniper. So the sniper is a bit better than the LMG, but 25 points is a big difference as well. So Command de l'Air, really good. Not quite the best special force out there though. The Commandos, they are pretty good at it. They are a 10-man squad with 2 LMGs and a decent AT weapon. And yeah, the extra 2 hit points, they put them up here as well. Like, that is a good special forces. Shock and special force on these units. Light machine guns. The anti-tank rocket launcher is decent as well. Yeah, and they are the extra 2 hit points over the Luftscharmjäger to be pretty solid here. Escort PC doesn't have any AT weapons. Does have the security trait, but can't fully use that without the AT weapon as a flanking protection unit. So it's only there to be a chewing gum unit for enemy fire and just be a meat shield. And yeah, the escort PC without any machine guns and so on, it's easy to play. You can just run around with them, but they're not great. Yeah, then we come to Gendarmerie de l'Air. That is pretty boring unit. It has 8 hit points, but it has terrible weapons, and it costs you 40 points. It has the military police trait, but it doesn't deal any damage, really. And I think that puts it into low C tier here. Like, if you need the military police trait, which can be helpful, and them being pretty chewy can be helpful there as well. That puts them not quite at the bottom, but outside of that, it's not great here for these guys. So, Gendarmerie de l'Air going around here. Grenadier Voltigier coming in next. That's a 10-man squad with a decent AT weapon. 10-man squad. Yeah, 5 points cheaper than these guys with similar loadout. It's not much difference there. So that's the thing. Same loadout as the Chasseur Para. It's not terrible. Yeah, I would say yeah, slightly ahead, but yeah, it's the difference is not big. Grenadier Voltigier Apilas. That's another one here for this thing. Then the Grenadier Voltigier FR. They have the sniper rifle that pushes them a bit further forward. I would put them around here. Gruppe Antichar. That's the AT weapons I was talking earlier about. Compared to the Panzerjägers, 5 points more for the extra 250 meter range and even slightly better pen on the Apilas and an extra hit point. Like, it's a world's difference to the Panzerjägers. These Gruppe Antichars are fantastic tank hunters. And I would put them around here into higher B tier as a unit that just can hunt down the enemy and kill off enemy vehicles. They don't have any MGs or so they're not amazing against infantry, but they at least can hold their own, can take a bit of a beating, and come around afterwards. Legionnaire Para. They are pretty pricey now as well. They get Shock and Resolute, but they pay for it 20 points over the Airmobile, which they also have Forward Deploy. Chasseur Para is a similar unit as well, which they get a bit better AT over, and Resolute paying 20 points for that. That's not great. Like, Legionnaire Para is a okay unit, but if you compare it to the special forces in the Command de l'Air, sure, you pay both have forward deployment. You get a better AT weapon, but this thing is so much better with a sniper rifle. And yes, 1 less hit point, but special forces, security trait, and so on. So the Legionnaire Para without the sniper rifle and so on, it's not quite up there. Then the Massoin, that's another Resolute unit. That's another one with a sniper rifle, another 10-man squad, 60 points. So it gets the Resolute over the Grenadier. Basically, that's what it is. It's a Grenadier with Resolute. And that's a nice buff for free, basically there. And then we have the same unit with Apilas, it says, but that means that it loses the sniper rifle. And that's an okay trait. Like, Apilas is a good bit better. Sniper rifle is a good, strong HE damage output, so that goes around here. Then we got another Gruppe Antichar with forward deployment. The forward deployment usually not super important for these guys. Like, other forward deployment units already can beat with light vehicles, and the enemy is not going to drive in with heavy tanks into your forward deploy infantry. So a bit weaker, I would say. Yeah, I would put it around here, but it still does a decent job. Para Marine, that's a similar unit to the Legionnaire Para and the Chasseur Para. It has a sniper rifle and an Apilas. But yeah, it also pays 20 points for that, for the sniper rifle and the Apilas here over the Chasseur Para. And that's like a 15 point upgrade. If they would be 75 points, they would be a good bit higher. But I would put them all into high C tier. Like, this is all solid infantry. They do their job, but they're not doing it super cost efficient, and that's the issue I have with these guys. Then the Prévote, that's basically similar to these guys. Can just go around here. Then French Reservists, 30 points, 10 hit points. That is the really nice part. They don't have AT, but they have one more hit point than these guys, and I have 5 points cheaper. So paying like around 8 to 9 points for is where it would be around. I would put them around a similar level. Like, they can just be spammed. And then we have an LRAC, but a bit weaker rifles and it's an old shitty LRAC with only 13 pen that we get as a reservist. And the weaker fire power with the 5 points, it does get a bit worse there, I would say. So yeah, I would put it around here, the reservists, so like a bit behind Ultramega Medis, yeah, Wachschützen, KDA Schützen as well. Would put it to the other guys here. That's about right. So now, next nation. Yeah, a lot to go through here. And then we come to the biggest nation in WARNO, the Luxembourgians. And they got a Fusilier, which is a pretty interesting little squad as well. This has forward deployment, and it's 2 MGs, 55 points. That's pretty okay for forward deployment, so otherwise it would be 50 points. As a squad on its own, I would put it into B tier here. Yeah, around the Grenadiers, Voltigeurs with the FR, 50 points here. The law is not amazing, but it's at least better than the Belgian ones. It's the normal American with 13 damage, the law A3. So yeah, Fusiliers here, they're not amazing, but they do the job. And in the division they are in, they're super important because you get forward deployment thanks to them and the other Luxembourgian units, and that pushes the Belgians quite a bit further forward. Then we come to the Dutch, and here we start with a classic little military police unit that goes somewhere around here. Then we come to an interesting unit, the Mariner. They don't have any AT weapons. 45 points is pretty expensive for that on average, but it's a 10-man squad with 3 MGs. And you have a lot of other AT squads in that deck, so they are decently useful. And I would put them around here as a similar like 3 MG squad to the Mordschützen, though they have 10 hit points, so they're better than that in the average roll. Actually, yeah, let's push them a bit further forward. Let's push them around behind KDA, I would say. Around here is fine. They can be really helpful as an anti-infantry squad. 10 hit points is decently good survivability and bang for a buck there. But yeah, the lack of AT weapon means that you have to keep them close to other infantry units, otherwise they will just get rolled over. The next unit, the Notres, are having an AT weapon, but also reservist trait. They are a 9-man squad with 1 MG, normal battle rifles, so pretty similar to what we got over here with the Belgian ones. And yeah, they do a similar job. They're a bit weaker in the AT weapon and so on. So yeah, maybe I would have put them next to the Marina, actually. They're a squad that you can use absolutely fine. 35 points for 9 hit points is nice. And they at least have an AT weapon. So on the flank, on their own, they can at least hold off against some scout cars or so. But they're not amazing. So yeah, there we go. And then we have the Panzer Infantry units, starting with the Dragon. That just got buffed lately. 40 points. Issue with these guys, they have only 1 MG. And the Dragon 1 is not a great AT weapon. So yeah, where to put them here in comparison? It's not an AT unit. in my eyes. Like, the single MG means that they don't really have the firepower. And for 40 points, that is for sure a weakness. I would put them actually into high C tier territory. As because the Dragon 1 with only 14 pen is not great either. 40 points is okay. But yeah, the normal Panzer Infantry with a Carl Gustav, similar thing. Like, the Carl Gustav is a pretty nice AT weapon, but you pay the 5 points extra. And then the Panzer Infantry Law still has an AT weapon at 35 points, and 35 points is decently cheap. So I would put these around the Nantes level. Like, the trade-off here is okay. The Nantes, I feel like, are a bit better as an infantry unit. Actually, let's put them behind the other Dutch here. So we have a bit of a Dutch block here. The infantry on their own, not great. The Dutch division still is fantastic. Like, these guys are all functional. And what you get with the Dutch is, especially the vehicles that they get, they are fantastic. And that's why the Dutch division works out quite well. Currently, the infantry is not really the reason for it. Then we come to the Polish. And we start with their AT Hunter Squadron here, which is better than the German ones, because they have only 18 pen on theirs, so that's not great, but they at least have 675 meter range with the Dejant Trujnia, and that makes them better than... Where did we put... By now I actually would say, no, you really shouldn't use these. Let's put them into C territory, and let's put these guys here around there, because they're still not amazing. But in the Polish deck, you kind of need them because you don't have other good infantry AT, so in some situations they can be quite helpful. Dejant Commandosi, that's an 8-man squadron, 460 points, with special forces, with 3 MGs, and an RPG. The RPG is not great, but the 3 PKMs on a special forces squadron, that is pretty good. They are cheaper than the commandos. That might be an S tier special forces infantry, actually. Like, yeah, 3 MGs. That is really solid. 8 hit points. They have a bit of a weaker AT, so I think we put them... the Lufthansa is also a bit cheaper, but that's for 4 deployment. So it's around there. Let's put them in low S tier. Currently the only S tier unit, but if other S tier units will most likely be better, but it's still a good unit there. Dejant Okrona, that's really interesting unit. Military police, security, shock. 9 hit points, 55 points, terrible AT weapon, only 1 MG. 55 points. Yes, you get all those traits from, but the traits don't add up well together. Like, security trait, you don't want to have around a lot of other units because that's a flank protection unit. Shock, you want to have cheap and cost efficient for infantry fighting, but the other traits make this more expensive, so it's not that. And military police is, you want to have that in the plot of all your reservist units, but then you don't need the security and the shock for that, because that's usually not where you push in, and that's also usually not what you have on the flank. So this thing is pulled into all different directions, but it pays the price for all of it, because the base weapons it has is not great. It has 4 deploy as well, so yeah, it pays for everything. And because it pulls all of this into different directions, I would put them pretty low here into C tier. I mean, maybe even... Like, I feel like this is a kind of a trap unit, because it looks pretty good on paper, but it's not that great in play. So let's push this into D tier even here. If you... Like, this is a unit I would be interested in your opinion, down below. Because this might be better than I might make it here, but yeah, let me know down below. Then we come to the Trujnia PPA ANC. 35 points, a bit better. Like, that's what you want to do. I talked about earlier that you don't really need them to be forward deploy here to do their job, so the 5 point difference makes a good bit of difference here, and I actually would push them a bit further forward here with the double AT weapon, but it's still not a great unit. Then we come to the normal Commandosi. And these are a bit of a different squad than the other ones that we saw. This is only a 6-man squad. They are 5 points cheaper, That's not great. Usually you want to have 5 points per man, and then you're at a good rate. If they would be 50 points. 6-man squad also is something that you don't really fight with, even with special forces 1v1 against other infantry units well, because numbers matter a lot on infantry, because that also means more firepower, more damage. So these guys are not that great, but they have smoke. And in that regard, and if you mix them with others, and maybe if you have 2 of these running around, they can be pretty strong. So I don't think they're terrible. The smoke plays a big role, in my opinion, of this division, because of this unit, because I found smoke really useful all around. But I think it's still only a B tier unit, and the 2 more men here and forward deploy for the other commandosis plays a big role there. These guys here, I would only put around B tier. Yeah, they are comparable to the Fusiliers and the Reservists. Like, as I say, I still think Special Forces, they are okay squad. They're just not great. Then we come to the big squad of the Polish, 12 men. Niebieski, be ready. Pay 80 points for it, though. That's a lot for a non-Special Forces unit. Yeah, 12 hit points, that's nice, but KDA Schützen gets 14 for half the price. And KDA Schützen have one less MG, obviously no shock and no resolute, like shock and resolute. Those go well together, but not with a PKM. Like, shock is not great with PKMs, because PKMs are a weapon that you can't fire on the move. So, and you can't fire in house-to-house fighting. They have a minimum range, so when you are in a house, the PKM can't be used. So, Niebieski, be ready. I think it's a CT unit here as well that looks way better on paper than it is in-game, once more for the Polish, which is a bit of a shame. I don't think it takes much. Like, if you push this to 75, it automatically goes somewhere to B tier here. But for now, I would keep it into C tier here, because the rate for per hit point that you get is not quite correct. And that keeps it off in C tier here. Then we have the Pichota. That is a 9-man squad for 50 points. So, yeah, if you compare that, that's 10 points more for each man there. Obviously, you have two extra trades on the Niebieski, but that's 5 points. So, yeah, 75 points would be the correct rate in my eyes. Comparison. Bigger squads in general, just a bit better in survivability and so on. And then you can heal them and so on. So, like, big squads have some advantages that are nice, but it's not a 30-point gap for 3 hit points here. The PKM, only 1 PKM on these guys, and these are already not great. Like, the Pichota, they are a 9-man squad, that's a nice part. That's one more hit point than a Mordschützen, but they also have only a mediocre RPG, and they have 1 less MG and no resolute, so I would put them around the Mordschützen, but yeah, they are not amazing. Pichota Smack, 40 points, only 7 hit points, but 40 points is decently cheap. That's, yeah, 10 points cheaper but they don't have 2 MGs, so the firepower is somewhat limited. I like these guys a decent bit, though. But yeah, they like, the Pichotas are in general fine. They're not amazing. The Pichota with the SVD, that is a good unit. That is a really good unit, because they get a PKM and an SVD for 5 points. And that is a super fair rate. And that pushes them up here close to the Mordschützen SVD. Like, or maybe even ahead of the Mordschützen SVD, because that's 1 hit point for, yeah, the Mordschützen SVD not having better AT or anything either. Yeah, like, this is a good unit. The Pichota SVD is a fantastic unit. Firepower, the Pichota Smack, and the other Pichota SVD, that's a 10-man squad, so it gets an extra hit point over the other one as well. And it has 2 MGs and an SVD, so it's better than the French ones there as well. It pays 10 points for it, not just 5 points, so it's not quite as much of an upgrade, though it has the extra hit point, but I think this is a B tier territory, 60-point infantry unit. Yeah, the Polish RPG is still not great, but that's not their fault. Then we have the Polish airborne units, and there we start with the Spado, and they have an SVD and RPK, 9 hit points. but they pay 5 points more than the Pechota SVD. They have Shock, but Shock doesn't go well with the sniper rifle. Same issue, can't be fired on the move, has a minimum range, so that doesn't go so well there. And they're not special forces or anything. And then at 65 points, like if you compare them to the Pechota SVD, like they have 1 less hit point, pay 5 points more. That's the forward deploy thing, but then why do they have 1 less hit point? And they have an MG less for that as well. And the Shock doesn't compensate for that. So I think this is another low B tier territory. Like they're still having the sniper rifle, so they are competitive. The forward deploy is nice, but they pay a lot for it. 65 is pretty expensive. The Medis doesn't even get the sniper rifle and pays 70. So that's another... I would even go lower in C tier territory here, unfortunately, because they are so expensive. Like, this should be another 65 points. They should trade the sniper rifle for the Medis, and then I would be fine with them. This way, it's a unit that you shouldn't really use like that. And then we got the PKM. PKM, at least, also only 9 hit points, and it's the same strength. Like, we had a lot of PKM units having 1 less hit point or so. These guys don't. They get a weaker AT weapon, but they're also 5 points cheaper. So this is one of the few PKM versions that actually is better than the original. And we had the other one there in low B tier. So I would put these guys into B tier here as well, in the middle. The PKM guys. And then we have the last Polish unit, which is a military police unit with 9 hit points, the WSW. But they have it weirdly all over the place. They have security again, but no AT weapon there. I think this is kind of a D tier. Like, first of all, the Polish don't really need them. They don't really have anything for military police in the divisions, really. And the weapon loadout, 3 submachine guns and a light machine gun, no shock. So you can't really do it, push with it into buildings or anything. And no AT weapon for the flank protection and so on. This is pulled into all directions and not a good unit. Wouldn't use that. Then we come to the Soviets. And we start with Dezhenniki. A pretty classic squad. Has only a 500 meter range AT weapon. A 20 pen is nice. That's a nice part, but the range is an issue. It only has a 1 MG for 7-man squad. So if you compare them to the classic Modschützen, which is the same price, they have 1 less MG and no Resolute. They get the forward deploy, so it's kind of more like a 40-point unit when you pay the 5-point price tags. But even then, I would put them behind East German Fallschirmjägers as well. Yeah, even the Mariners and so on are better. Like, this squad is solid. I like it more than the Panzer Infantry. Because yeah, they're more aligned with the normal Panzer Grenadier, Panzer Infantry with the AT weapon, and they pay for the forward deploy. So yeah, let's put them into low B tier here. I like them a bit more than these guys as well, but not by much. And then we have the Dezhent Afghansi. They pay a lot for what they get as well. They get 3 MGs and two MGs and a sniper rifle, but they also get the shock trade, which doesn't really help them here with that weapon loadout. That's like a mid-range unit, not a shock territory unit. The Resolute is nice, but with 7 hit points, you die most of the time before you get stunned down anyways. So it's not super helpful for a unit like this. Like, the bigger the squad, the more impactful Resolute is. And that's why I think, like, these guys are not super overpriced. But, yeah, a bit, the Polish. But the Dezhent Afghansi, yeah, if they would be 55 points, I think they would be amazing. This way, they are. I think they are around these guys. Like, they are a bit too pricey for what they fully do. Then we have Dezhenniki BMD. Those are a 6-man squad, but they have a sniper rifle. I would rate that a bit higher than the like more than an extra man here. So yeah, around Wachschützen sounds decent. They also have the RPG that is better. This 18 pen, 2 pen for 175-meter range is a super fair trade. It still one-shots most IFVs. That's the key part with the 18 pen. So yeah, they go up there. There's Janiki Medis, and that is a overpriced squad there as well in comparison now. Like, it is just the Medis over as an AT weapon change, and that's 10 points for that. So that's another C tier territory unit. I would put that behind, yeah, around the other Medis unit here. Like, this is a slightly overpriced Medis unit. If there would be a 5-point gap, it would be a difference. But the issue is that these divisions currently perform so well that the Dejaniki infantry doesn't really matter. So you can't really buff them because they would just go completely nuts. But the Dejaniki infantry currently not amazing. The Dejan Pulimachiki, 7-man squad, 3 MGs, so same strength. The weaker unit pays 5 points extra. I think that goes around the Afghansi. Like, if they would be the same price as the normal Dejaniki, I think they would be going up here as well, like similar to the PKM that went up, but they didn't, so they go down. And then the Dejan Uzleni, that's an interesting squad. 9 hit points, double RPG, but one of them is an RPG 22, so the damage is a bit limited. And they have 2 MGs, they have shock. They pay 70 points though for a 9 hit point squad. That's usually 10 hit point squad territory. Like, if there would be 10 hit points, I would be a lot more forgiving here as well. But I think that's just a similar kind of like yeah, even this is not good. Like, yeah, the extra double RPG doesn't really help you. And the Polish get, like, this has 2 MGs. That's the thing. But the Polish get that for 35 points with better RPGs. So yeah, it's 65 points when you ignore the forward deploy. But even then, the 2 MGs are not worth 30 points. Not quite. Like, yeah, 5 points cheaper, this unit would go up into high C tier, low B tier, but it's not there, so low C tier this. Like, it still has some use case. 9 hit point squad is decent and all. Then the 2 MGs are nice, but yeah, don't quite see it. Then we have the Dejant Afghansi, which is an interesting squad as well. 8 hit points, and has an 8 rocket launcher, RPOA, incendiary rocket launcher. And it's the same price as these Afghansi, but it has the extra hit points. And that is really important for the Resolute Troop I talked earlier. And it has 3 MGs. 2 MGs and and 8 hit points. The extra hit points are important. Only 1 hit point more than the other one, but that one is key. And it's only 60 points here. So I think that goes above the Commandosi. That goes yeah, this goes somewhere higher into B tier. Let's put them around here. Yeah, this fits pretty well. Then the RPG 22 variant. That's a 14 hit point squad. That's 2 more hit points than these guys for 2 points. That's kind of how you have to look at it. They don't have Resolute though, but 14 hit points is quite nice. They pay a lot for it, and the AT weapon is weak, so they still pay nearly double what the KDA Schützen does. But on average, that is still a decent rate. I would actually just put them next to the KDA Schützen as another 40-man squad that really does its job, but you pay for it. But yeah, this is a solid. If these guys would have Resolute, they would be amazing. They unfortunately don't, but yeah, they still do the job there. Let's stay with the Dejant units here for now, and let's go to the Dej Medis. And that's a 55 points, 8 hit point squad with the Medis. Yeah, slightly overpriced with only 1 MG. Not super helpful there. You usually don't want to push a Medis unit super close in there. It is a bit better than the others, so I think around here is about fine. And then the Dejant Pulimachiki. It goes down to 7-man squad again, but at least it has the 3 MGs there. It has an AT weapon. 3 MGs are quite nice on this. I would push them around. Like, they are they are weaker than the Mariners because they have good bit less hit points. So yeah, around here, around there sounds about fine. And then we have the last unit, which is the Dejant RPG 16, and they only cost 40 points. And yeah, the RPG 16 has low accuracy, low damage, but it has great range. 1025 meter range, the highest range of these kind of launchers, because it's more like closer to a recoilless rifle in how it works. And for that 40 points, that is quite nice because you still get 7 men. Like this is actually pretty good. The 40 points is a big difference, and that puts it high into B tier. Nice, as it still has an AT weapon and even can stun down the enemy from long range, if that's something you want. So those guys go up, and then we have the RPG 7 version, which has an SVD, 45 points. So yeah, at that point we get close to Mutchison again. 45 points, has an SVD, and has a good RPG. So it actually goes around Mutchison because it has the SVD. So yeah, it's so hard to rank these units because they're like 5 point difference can make all the difference here so quickly. But yeah, Mutchison and these guys are pretty close to each other. And then Motostrelki BMP. Here we go. Or let's go with the Commandantura because that's easy. That's where all the other guys are. Commandantura first, and then Motostrelki BMP. 40-point unit, so it is 5 points cheaper than the Mutchison, but doesn't get Resolute, gets one less MG, has a decent RPG. I think that's a solid B tier infantry. That's pretty close to, yeah, what these two guys do. Motostrelki, the normal one, pays 5 points more, or an extra hit point, not quite on rate, and the RPG is a bit weaker. Yeah. Like, I explained why the RPG is weaker a couple of times now. The more hit points versus the less range is not a fair trade. Then Motostrelki Medis. Medis pays 5 points extra in comparison to the... No, pays 10 points extra actually. It is a 7-man squad. And that tanks it again. And then tanks it hard again. Like, yeah, let's put it to the Dajaniki Medis. Like, this is currently not really on rate. The Medis infantry, with the range changes and so on, they aren't fully compensated there. You usually kind of try to avoid that. Then we have the Motostrelki RPG 22, and they only cost 35 points, and that is really nice. And I think this is a kind of A-tier kind of unit. Like, let's put them next to Mech Fusiliers. Same hit points, 5 points cheaper for the MG difference. Slightly better RPG. Like, the Motostrelki, like, 35 points for a normal infantry squad is really cheap. And these are normal infantry, like, they are not reservists or anything. So, paying 35 points there is really nice. They are super on rate. Now we come to the better RPGs. The RPG 26 first. 8-man squad with an RPG 26. That's a better RPG than what we just looked at. With 16 pen and quick rate of fire. I think they're a bit better than the normal Motostrelkis, which we had here. So would put them next to them. It's not really a big difference because it's 4 pen difference here between these two. But yeah, that's where these guys go. And then the RPG 27 one, which is a lower range again, has 21 pen. So 3 pen versus the range. That's where about it gets pretty tricky to, but yeah, still a bit weaker, I would say, than the normal Motostrelkis in the usual use. And Okranas, a weird little unit, 10 hit points, 45 points, security. Doesn't have any AT. If they would have a whiff of AT, they would be pretty okay. This way around, I would put them into C tier next to the Escorty. Or, well, yeah, they have the firepower. No, let's put them here into the bottom C tier. I'm not so hyped about 45 points for a unit that just can't quite do it. I'm not so hyped for it. OP Spetsnaz. That's an AT squadron. Special forces, but the special forces don't really matter. And you pay for the fort deploy and the special forces here, but the special forces don't do much for the RPG-29. The RPG-29 is a fantastic AT weapon, 2110, great accuracy, good range, but it's 40 points for a unit that only does that. 4 hit points, the submachine guns don't really matter with only 4 hit points of special forces, and that puts it around where we had the Polish AT squads, I would say, because the extra range and the extra pen matter a good bit for the first shot, for the range there, but it doesn't really get on raid. The Oleni Podechki, they do it for 10 points cheaper, and that's where this becomes interesting. So I still think it's only a CT unit, to be fair, but they do it a bit better because as an AT squadron, as a real hunter. So they go around there. Polomachiki, 7-man squad, 3 PKMs. They are on task here. I would put them around the Dejaniki BMD. The Wachschützen. Let's push them back here to the. Yeah, a bit. I'm not the biggest fan, but I feel like nowadays they are pretty fine. They have been moved around a lot in the past. And then the Sagra Dodriat with SVD and PKMs. This does what you want to do with a security squadron. This does a lot of HG damage, and in the divisions it works in, that means it can just be sitting inside of all your reservist units and help out with the firepower whilst buffing them all up. So it pays 50 points for it. That is a lot, but it does at least what you need it to do. And I feel like that's a high C tier territory because it still pays a lot for it. No AT weapon on it. It on its own is not amazing, but it does what it needs to do quite well for the KDAs. Actually, let's put it into low B tier here. Around here. There we go. I feel fine with this. That is good. Let's get to the British. And we still have a good bit to go through here, guys. This will be a long tier list. Airmobile coming up next. These guys, they are pretty good with the low 80. 9 hit points. And low 80, 2 MGs, 55 points. That's a really on-raid unit. Like, a really on-raid unit. I would push them in front of the chasseurs. Yeah, I would put them around here. This is a really good unit. Law 80 is fantastic launcher. And 9 hit points with 2 MGs, 55 points. That's just right where it needs to be. Airmobile gun group. That's a pretty good squad as well. Has 3 MGs. Has a lot weaker AT weapon. 9 hit points still. 3 medium MGs. That's still pretty much where you need it to be, though. I would put that into low 8 here. Like, yeah, that's strong infantry. And then we have the Airmobile Pioneers. They pay 50 points, 5 points more for the shock, but they still have a medium machine gun, which is not great with the shock. And you don't have any central charges also on these AT Pioneers, so I would say that pushes them a bit lower. I would put them around here. The Massoins are comparable. And armored rifles, the next part of this. And they 40 points, 2 MGs, 7-man squad. That's better than the Motostrikes in firepower. They have a lot weaker RPG though, so that's a fine squad. Um, Not amazing, but the double MG is quite nice. Then Assault Pioneers, Carl Gustav. That's another 8-man squad. They have the Carl Gustav, they have the shock, but the shock is not super important for these again, though they have light submachine guns only, and they pay 10 points less for that one medium machine gun compared to these guys. So 8 hit points, Carl Gustav. Yeah, I think this is another high B tier, low A tier infantry. So British going really strong here with the first couple of units. Berlin Rifles. That's a 10-man squad with a lower 80. It's comparable to the what you just saw with the Airmobile. Only 1 hit point more for shock and the extra hit point guy. If it would be 5 points, that would be a premium. For 10 points, it's slightly below that for what it gets in my eyes. So I think that's an yeah. I want to put it somewhere into high B tier territory again. Let's put it slightly behind these guys because yeah, they get well, they get 1 more hit point, yeah, but they have a weaker MG, so they pay 5 points more compared to the Airmobile Pioneers. That's not quite there, so yeah, comparing it to the Dejanov Ganzi, that's yeah, this is about right, I think. Gun groups, not great. They work well in their role with transport and all, but gun group itself, it's not amazing. You get an infantry squad is what this thing does for 30 points, but for 5 points more, you often get the 7-man squad and or a 9-man squad with reservist. So they come as an infantry squad on a premium. They are an infantry squad. That's what they do. Like they are on the flank. They can fire law. They are there. They are a cheap unit that you can put in places, and that has a value, but it doesn't quite have 30 points value. Like it has like 27 points of value. If they would be 25 points, they would be a pretty good squad. On 30 points, they are a pretty mediocre squad on their own, so they go in the rear here. Then we come to the Gurkha AT squad. They are only a 4-man squad. They have the shock, they have the resolute, but that doesn't matter. The submachine gun is terrible. Double Law 80 is great, but it's a lot smaller squadron than the Apilas teams of the French. And the French ones are better in my eyes because of that. So I would put them around here. They pay 10 more points for the extra launcher, and that's kind of it. And yeah, that's a fair trade, but it's not a great trade. So yeah, they go around here. Then we come to the Gurkha rifles. That's a 12-man squad with a low 80 and 3 machine guns and resolute. Resolute on these big squads matters. Plus the shock is important here as well because they have light machine guns. These can be used in CQC, these can be used on the move. Gurkha rifles are amazing now. 85 points. They are a fantastic infantry squad. So the British getting an S tier unit here. Gurkha rifles. They are just amazing. Like, they do the job. They get out there. They shoot the enemy with a low 80. And they can also just annihilate any infantry squad. Gurkha rifles, one of the reasons why I love Mnet at the moment. Fantastic unit. HSF, 10-man squad for 30 points. That has a value. Security trade on the side is nice as well. Issue, they don't have an AT weapon, but it's a 10-man squad for 30 points. And that has a lot of value in my eyes. Like, that puts them around the Nantes and the Belgian reservists. Like, let's put them in here. Yeah, with the French reservists, this has value. It's 10 hit points that the enemy has to chew through for 30 points. That has decent value. It's not really important in the division that it gets currently with 2nd UK because you have so much other good infantry. But if another division gets them, we will see them. We will see them for sure. And then we have Mod Airmobile. And those are an interesting infantry squad as well. And they are 9 hit points, 2 MGs, Carl Gustav. So compared to the normal airmobile, they have a weaker AT weapon, and that's really the downgrade there. And that's a significant downgrade, as they are outside of that identical. So it's still a good squad. Like, that's the thing. For 55 points, you still get 9 hit points with 2 light machine guns and assault rifles. Like, that's still good. High B tier territory here for the mod airmobile, weaker than the normal airmobile due to not having the low AD and just the Carl Gustav, which is still fine, but not amazing. Then we have mod rifles, and those are a pushed version of that. Like, they are basically the same as the mod airmobile, but they just come 5 points cheaper. Like, they're identical, and for 5 points cheaper, that's fantastic. Like, that's where we want to go again. Like, that's the 5-point discount here for what they do to get around again. And it's the reason why 4th Armored at the moment is somewhat viable again. Like, they make the infantry cost efficient so that everything else can be efficient as well. You take all the cards you can get there and you use them. Like, these are a fantastic infantry squad. They're not super OP. They don't annihilate everything, but they are efficient. They are super efficient. Mod rifles are lovely. So, yeah, that's the next one. Para gun group is the next one. That is a good bit better than the normal gun group. It pays 20 points extra for the forward deploy. It's 5 points, and then it's 15 points for a way better AT weapon. The Carl Gustav makes it fantastic for flank protection because it can kill off a decent amount of light vehicles. 750 meter range is important on the Carl Gustav. It can protect the flank really well. And 3 MGs also means it can stop every infantry pushing into it. So the Para gun group is the optimal flank protection unit for the early game, especially the forward deploy. You get that into a position and they hold it. They hold it against recon cars. They hold it against 1 or 2 enemy recon infantry pushing into them. So the Para gun group does that really well. It's not an amazing all-around infantry, and it pays for being an all-around infantry with 50 points. So it's not the best infantry ever, but it is really good in what it does for MNET, and it is a pretty fair unit all around. Yeah, I would put them around the KDA Schützen RPG 20. Yeah, I would put them around here. Like, they are a pretty solid squad. Now we have the Paras, 65-point unit, have a low 80. They are an 8-man squad only, not a 9-man squad like the Airmobile we saw. They have the shock, which is a bit helpful, but they also have the forward deploy. They have 1 less hit point. Yeah, Para is a fair squad, a pretty fair squad. I would put them around. Where did we have the? Yeah, I would put them around here, maybe close to the East German Fallschirmjägers. Like, they get a better AT weapon for not having special forces still. No, that's too much of a debuff. Let's put them around the Medis Fallschirmjägers. They're fine. Like, yeah, MNET is a super important unit, but they're not amazing. RAF Rifle Berlin. That's a squad that is 12 hit points, has an AT weapon that has value. That has a lot of value for 40 points. Yeah, 2 less hit points than what you get with KDA, and a bit of a weird loadout with the submachine guns. So I kind of wouldn't quite put them up there with the KDA. I would put them slightly behind them. But yeah, it's around there. Like, this, the security trait also has value here with the AT weapon and so on. Like, this is a good flank protection unit. Can hold off the enemy for a while, actually, with its 12 hit points, because they have to chew through all of them. So, yeah, that's a fine squad. Now we have the normal rifles. That's still a fine squad. It has a low 80. It has 55 points price. So, yeah, it's 1 less hit point again than the Airmobile and doing the same job. So, I would put them around the Berlin rifles. Like, 2 less hit points for like, this is kind of on rate. The 2 less hit points for 10 points. Kind of on rate. Slightly better, I would say, than the Berlin rifles. And then we have the RMP. They pay 25 points for the military police unit. That is not good. The 5 points extra, yes, they have a medium machine gun, but that's not what you get for your 4-point military police unit. RMP is an D tier unit. That's not what you want out of your military police. The 5-point extra is a big premium there for a medium machine gun that doesn't really help you in a 4-man squad. No AT weapon or anything. They would pay 5 points for an AT weapon. Big. That would be nice. But they don't do that. So, no. And then we come to the SAS. And they're still king. SAS is still king. We had them in the Special Forces tier list high up there. They're still amazing. Like the submachine gun and 2 medium light machine guns. It's absolutely stupendous what this squad can do. With the Stinger, with the AT4, forward deploy. These guys are just absolutely nuts. So, yeah, SAS still up there. The second UK is S tier because of them. Like, if you would take away the squad, second UK would fall down a significant amount. Even for 100 point. Like, they deserve that because they mix it all. Like, they shred infantry in the forward deploy scenario. They move around quickly. They are fantastic at shock. The Stinger means that enemy can't helo rush you. Enemy has to be worried about any plane usage as well. It's insane. It's insane what the SAS can do. Terrier Gun Group is the next one. They don't have AT. If they would have any form of AT, they would do 25 points. They would have value. Without that, they just don't. 4 hit points for a 20-point squad, that's just not something you do. Like, they don't have value. The normal gun group has value thanks to the AT to being flank protection. These guys don't. Terrier. Yeah, 8-man squad with a law. The weapons are shit. So, and the law is not good either. I think that's another C tier, like low C tier kind of unit here. Let's get them around here. Then the Terrier AT group. Like, yeah, that's what the Terrier gun group would have loved to be. If they would have had a Carl Gustav, that would be pretty fine. This is a okay flank protection unit for 25 points. They don't stop infantry though. Like, they don't have any V machine guns to stop infantry. They're just anti-vehicle. They do that okay. Second UK doesn't need that because they have so much good AT and so much good infantry and so on around. And enough map control usually anyways. In other divisions, it might be interesting. Yeah, Terrier Power. Another interesting unit. Forward deploy. Only has 1 MG, so it's kind of just a weaker Luxembourgian unit. Like, the Luxembourgians with 2 MGs are basically doing the same thing. So with them not doing that, I would put them a bit behind here as low B tier territory. Forward deploy still has value. 8 hit points for only 1 MG. Yeah, it's not amazing, but it can do the job. The Terrier Power Carl Gustav, get a Carl Gustav upgrade, but they pay the full 5 points for it. No other extra boni on top. If they would get any extra thing on top, that would be nice, but this way around, it's only a B tier unit. And that brings us to the Americans. So that's the biggest plop of infantry that we have to go through here. A lot of them going around. Airborne gun groups, fire team starting here with the Airborne Fire Team Dragon. Airborne Fire Team Dragon. 45 points. Only 1 MG, 5 hit points. The Dragon 2 is not what you want out of it anymore. That is... Yeah, that is even weaker than these many units, I think, because the 5 hit points is so low. Like, this is a pure flank protection unit, and you don't want to pay 45 points for that. If they would be 40 points, yes. If they would be 35 points, absolutely. 45 points, no. The 84 variant, that's doing the flank protection. They pay 10 points less, but they're also a good bit weaker than a Dragon 2 would be on the flank protection, so they're still not great, but they are going up a bit. Yeah, they are a higher C tier territory unit. Then Airborne Military Police. That is the patrol variant with 5 hit points. Not great. 35 points, a lot of points for that. Yeah, they don't have AT weapons. That's irrelevant. You pay 15 points for the one with the M67. That is a decent flank protection unit. And these guys were OP back in the past, but the range got reduced so much, the price got increased. They haven't really been compensated in price. These units were so good back in the day. They are really, really not right now. Like, I, I go around here. Like, they pay so much here for it. And with the fort deploy doesn't really matter for these guys as well. So, it can be used as an infantry support unit as well. But for 50 points, that's not on price. Like, the normal one we will get to is a decent bit better. Then we have aero rifles here with, or aero fire teams first, with 84. They pay the same price as these guys without getting the forward deployment. So that's a bit of a downer here for the aero fire teams. If they would be 30 points, they would be actually pretty good. With being 35 points, they're not. And then we have the 40 points for the dragon. That's better than the other dragon, but it's around the same thing here in C tier. If they would be 6 men, or if they would be 30 and 40 points, like for 30 points, the other one would be even going up maybe a bit. But that's not really on par. Air rifles, 9 man, has a light machine gun, 55 points, has shock. That is something. That is something. Not as OP as the airmobile of the British, but I would put them around power territory here. Or not even a bit ahead of these guys here. 1 extra hit point, similar lore, like, yeah, shock. That is a decent squad. Air rifles, 84. That is a weird unit. It's a 13 hit point unit. Shock. No resolute or anything. But 84 is a good AT weapon. 3 light machine guns. That's a lot of firepower. That's more firepower than what the Polish guys here get for the same price. And they have an extra hit point. They don't have resolute. But in general, I would push that above where we had the KDA and its friends here. Yeah, I would push that slightly above all of that. So let's put them around the commandancy here. Or actually, I feel like they are pretty much on par here. Like, it's 4 hit points, 25 points. The 84, which is it's around here. It's still not an amazing squad, but it is a good squad. A really good squad. Like, the resolute would be big on them. If they would get resolute, they would go up a good bit. Similar to the Gurkhas. The better AT weapon on the Gurkhas matters a good bit as well. For these big squad, as I said, resolute is really key. Because they only have 1 stress bar. Just like 2 small infantry squads have more stress health, basically, than 1 big squad. And resolute compensates for that. Like, that's the only weakness big squads have, that they only have 1 stress bar that fills as quickly as a small infantry squad's stress bar. And resolute compensates super well for that. Otherwise, big squads have the advantage of that they don't die as quickly, and replenishing them is easier because of that, because you can save them easier. And if they get into a 1v1 situation where it's only 1 enemy squad running around, they annihilate them damage-wise. So, yeah. The only issue that they have is compensated really nicely by resolute, so not having resolute on them is a big deficit. Arrow Rifles Dragon, Airborne Rifles Dragon, 80 points for it is a lot. Like, they pay such a premium for the Dragon too. They have light submachine gun, they are a 9-man squad. Air Rifles Dragons, that is, though. I was confusing them with the airborne there for a second. Sorry. Yeah, they pay still a premium. Still a 10-point premium, which is not quite on par. It's better than the Medis the Dragon 2 is. So, with the 1 extra pen, that plays a role. But I still think it's weaker than normal air rifles. So it's a way better AT weapon here as well. It's a lower Dragon 2. But yeah, it's an okay squad. Then the airborne, they come with an 84. Forward deploy. So that's a bit better thanks to the forward deploy. That's another BT unit. The American infantry here currently rather mediocre. So yeah, they are one extra hit point to the Fallschirmjägers, but they don't have the special forces. So I would put them around there with the Fallschirmjägers. Airborne Dragon, as I said, that pays a lot, too much for it. 15 points for the Dragon 2. That's not fair. And that puts them around here. Like these are just somewhat overpriced units. If they would get 5 points cheaper, they would be really nice. Like they are functional units, they're just not priced fairly. Airborne Gunners. That is an interesting unit. Only 7-man squad. 3 MGs though. So that goes around where other gun groups are. And where the PKM squads and so on are. 7-man squad. They are somewhat comparable to the British gun groups here. They are 1 more hit point for a lot weaker AT weapon. That's around fair. So airborne gunners, yeah, good against infantry on the flanks, good against infantry everywhere, and can do flank protection against vehicles as well. The shock is pretty irrelevant. Aircraft troopers. That's a 9-man squad with security. The security matters here. Getting them with a helicopter onto a flank and then just letting them sit there does matter for these guys. 55 points, 9-man squad. It's on par. It's not amazing. It's somewhere in here as well. Like it's pretty hard to rank these guys in between each other. Like, is it better than the Motostrelkis? Is it weaker? I would say it's slightly better, but not by much. Dismounted trooper, another interesting unit, has 3 machine guns, has security, has an 84. Like this is a perfect flank protection. It can push a bit around. It doesn't have shock. It's only 6-man squads, and that's an issue there. Yeah, but it's better flank protection than the gun group, or it's around the same kind of, but it has security, which is important there. So I would push it a bit higher. 45 points is nice. So there they go. The engineer with the dragon, they were perfect flank protection back in the day. They have been price nerfed, and then the dragon has been nerfed, and ever since then, the engineered dragon has fallen off. So I don't like them anymore. I think they are just a C tier unit here. And yeah, let's push them around here. I think the airmobiles are better than this. Let's push them ahead. And let's go with that. Fireteam 84. Fireteam 84 is another pretty mediocre unit. It has 6 hit points though. And 2 MGs. Like that's the thing about the airborne fire teams. It actually can hold off infantry with the extra MG and fight infantry. Let's put them into low B tier here. 35 points for that is fine with the 84. Fire Team Dragon, 40 points for it. Similar thing. And then the Fire Team Law, I would say still having an AT weapon and being on the defensive. Let's put them around the non-stress here. Like that is a pretty fine squad. Then we have the ODA. And that's a good squad. That's a fantastic squad. It has special forces. It has an 84. It has so much infantry firepower. Doesn't quite have an amazing AT weapon with the 84. So I still think it's an S tier unit. Because it just demolishes infantry and special forces and so on, it can move around. The SAS is more flexible. But 14 hit points with special forces, it's a killer. And the 84 is pretty helpful. So the ODA goes up there. Green Berets, another special forces unit. Somewhat overpriced. Has a better AT weapon than the Polish Commandosis, but it pays 5 points extra. And outside of that, it's pretty similar. So I would put it here next to the Commandosi. Because it pays the 5 points extra for the forward deploy. Has a better AT weapon. Let's push it a bit further up here. But it's not amazing right now. Gunners, next unit. 45 points for 7-man squad with 3 MGs and an AT weapon. That is pretty fine. Yeah, where did we put the airborne gunners? I would put them around somewhere around here as well. Let's consider this. Compared to the dismounted troopers, they have an extra man. They have an extra MG with that. They don't have the security trait, but they have the extra man with an extra MG. That's slightly better even. So yeah, gunners go around there. Then we have the light rifles with the dragon. That's a dragon 2 with a 10-man squad and 3 MGs, and that's pretty good. Like that's where dragon 2 then actually pays off. And I think 10-man squad with 3 MGs, that's a fantastic squad. Like, this is a really good squad. 9th Infantry here having a good infantry unit. And 65 points is pretty expensive. That's why I struggle to rate it here right now. Compared to the Modshots and Medis, they get an extra MG, they get 2 hit points. That's the 10 points, absolutely. So, yeah, let's put them around there. That sounds about right. Then we have Light Rifles Law, which is an interesting little unit as well that comes around with Berlin Command and 9th, and it has a sniper rifle. And it pays 5 points less whilst having the sniper rifle. Like, that would be a good trade-off. Sniper rifle against this, but with that, like, this goes pretty high. The law is not great, but it's an AT weapon. And like, the difference between not having an AT weapon and having a law is pretty big. So they go up. And then we have the mech rifles here with the dragon. That's 60 points for a 9-man squad. Only 2 MGs, dragon 2. That's 5 points less for 1 MG. That's still a okay squad. Like, this is a pretty good squad, I would say. I would put them ahead of the airborne. Yeah, let's put them next to the Berlin rifles here and get them in there. And the mech rifle law, pay only 50 points for a 9-man squad with 2 MGs. That is a pretty fair deal as well. And I think that puts them up here. Like, in comparison, that's 2 less MGs for 10 points more for 2 more guys here. It's pretty on rate. Yeah, let's put them here. Mech rifle law, pretty solid unit. And then we have the military police for 50 points. That's a big squad, 10-man squad, 2 MGs. It kind of works like the Zagorodiat that we looked at earlier, but it doesn't have the sniper rifle. And yes, in 24th it can be important with these National Guards around and all, but on its own, it's a rather C-tier kind of unit due to not having the sniper rifle. It would go up a bit more if it would have slightly better weapons there. Then the MP Patrol. That's another C-tier military police unit, D-tier military police unit in my eyes. Just going next there. And then the MP Patrol of the M67. The M67 here, 5 points difference, makes it a bit more efficient as a fire support unit. I still don't think they're amazing, but we can push it a bit up here in the D-tier territory. In the C-tier territory, I mean. Actually, these guys are behind the French infantry though. So let's push them a bit further behind. Behind the aeromobiles here. Yeah, this is where I feel comfortable with them. National Guards. And they have a lot of units as well. National Guard, Fireteam Dragon. First here. It only has a Dragon 1. It's a 6-man squad. Tough to rate here. Tough to rate once more. 30 points. Fireteam Dragon. Fireteam, it's 10 points cheaper, but it has reservist and all. No, this is not just another non-great fireteam. National Guard fireteam law, it's 25 points. That is nice. But it doesn't really do the job either. It's 25 points the 25 points is just such a cheap thing. And what they come with is nice. Like having 25 points is a big jump percentage-wise. So I would push them a bit further. And then National Guard Dragons, they have a Dragon too. They're a 9-man squad. They only have 1 MG. If they would have 2 MGs for 50 points, they would be really nice with even a Reservist. The Reservist holds them back though. So yeah, this is another CT unit here. Like this is a playable CT unit once more, but I kind of want to push the French further up here. No, not the Defense Infantry. I did put the French too low. In comparison to the others. Where did I just move this Dutch from? Next to the other Dutch. Okay. Yeah. Let's move it around like that. They're overpriced, but yeah, they're not that much overpriced. National Guard Fireteam Law, they have 2 MGs. Like, and they are only 40 points. This is a unit that pushes it into B tier territory. Only non-tres kind of level. The extra MG by same hit points for 5 points, that's a fair trade. And then the National Guards with the RCL, that's where the RCL is pretty important. Has a lot of ammo and a lot of can help out with a lot of fire support on mid-range against other infantry squads. Can start to stun them down. This is good in a plop. So these are actually pretty solid. They are not really pushing high level territory for 50 points either, with being a reservist unit. But they do a job. And they do it okay. Then we come to the Rangers. The OG Rangers, 9 hit points, Special Forces, Law. That's pretty good for 65 points. Like 9 hit points is really nice there. The Law is the weakness. But as an infantry squad, for 65 points, like they are better than. I would put them in low A tier. I would put them into. And like if you compare them to the light rifle dragons, they don't have the 3 MGs, but they have, and they don't have a dragon 2, which is, so they are weaker there. Like they are more comparable to a light rifles Law. They pay 5 points extra. They don't have the sniper rifle, but they have the special forces. If they would be on same, they would be high up there in A tier. This way around, they are in lower A tier, but they still do the thing quite nicely. Ranger Dragon, unfortunately, pays 10 points against 4 Dragon, so that's not quite on rate. I would put them a bit further behind here. Still a good squad, 9 men, special forces, so not bad. And then we have the light rifles RCL. Those were amazing when the RCLs were amazing. They have been nerfed a bit since then. They still have 3 MGs and an RCL, so I think they are a low A tier unit as well. Light rifle RCL. Well, no, yeah, they don't have a sniper rifle compared to the Law, but they are only 60 points. Actually, let's push them up there. Yep. Light rifles, RCL, those are the good Americans. The light rifles in general, pretty nice around. Then we come to the West Germans. And here we start with the Feldjägers. We know where these guys go. Let's put them there. Then we have the Freiwillige Polizeireserve. That's an interesting unit. 10-man squad for 30 points. That's on rate for a reservist unit. Security as well. Has an MG. Yeah, put them around here. Extra hit point, 5 points less, no AT weapon. On par there. And we have the Fallschirmjägers. And they're so expensive. They're stupid expensive. They are still having a use case, but they're stupid expensive. Like if you compare them to the Chasseur Para, for example, it's not fair. To the Airmobile, it's just not fair. Like, yeah, only 1 MG, 8 hit points. The Panzerfaust 3 is nice, but 70 points is, come on. They don't have special forces or anything. Like the East German Fallschirmjägers pay 5 points less and have special forces. The Paras of the British have better loadout with MGs for chalk, and a Law 80 which is better than the Panzerfaust 3 thanks to the extra range and the faster reload. And they are 65 points. So if this would be 65 points, it would go up into low B tier territory again. 70 points. Let's not put it quite down there. It is still a C tier unit. It's a bit better than a couple of these. Like, yeah, this is where it feels like. It's just a bit of a shame. Because it's a cool unit for Mnet that doesn't get the love, but second Panzer Grenadier is strong enough still, so buffing it would be risky for second Panzer Grenadier reasons. Jäger Panzerfaust. That's a 9-man squad with a Panzerfaust. 50 points. That's on raid. Yeah, I think this is just a low. Like the 9 hit points is the important part, but it's like that's a 9 hit point unit as well. It doesn't have reservists or anything, but it's not amazing. Heimatjägers, they are in 9 hit point squad. They get a Carl Gustav, which is a good bit better AT weapon. So that's the 5 points difference explained here. But yeah, that's just on rate there. So around here, the Heimatjäger. And then we have the normal Jäger. And they don't have any AT weapon, but they get a sniper rifle. And that's what they are 10 points cheaper. So they are actually a really good anti-infantry squad. And if you have other AT squad around them, they actually go up quite nicely. So I would put the Jaegers around here. Jaeger, quite a nice unit. Pioneer, Carl Gustav, 55 points, 10-man squad. Only 1 MG still. The shot is not great with battle rifles with the German MG3. Carl Gustav is nice, but they pay 55 points. And 55 points is quite a lot. So I would put them into high C tier. Like this is a solid C tier unit. 10 hit points is nice, but they're not great right now. Then we come to the Panzer Grenadier. They are only 35 points for MG3, a sniper rifle, and a AT weapon still. And the 35 points is the selling point now. Now, the Panzer Grenadiers are, as an infantry unit, a really solid unit now. Like, the shock effect of the G3 with Zielfernrohr, the sniper rifle that they get, is really important. And that puts them... They're only a 6-man squad, they have a weak AT weapon, so it's not OP, but it is pretty cost efficient. And I would put them around here. It's hard to compare these, but it is a pretty good squad. Panzer Grenadier Carl Gustav pays the same price, has a Carl Gustav, but loses the sniper rifle, and that's weaker, but that's still not bad for 35 points. And I think it's on par here as a high B tier unit as a squad. Panzer Grenadier M113, 9-man squad, pays every single 5 points for each of them. That's not quite on rate. Like it's around 4 points, and like if you get an extra goodie on top, that's kind of where an extra hit point is. So 50 points. Let's find a comparable unit in B tier. It's hard. I think it's low B tier again. Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're exactly the same as Jaegers. I forgot that they are now exactly the same as Jaegers. So I don't even need to think about it. And then we have Sicherungs. And they are 45 points for an 11 hit point squad. 11 hit point is what makes them better than the Ukrainas. The extra hit point matters quite a bit. They have security as well. MG, like, so I think they are a decent, somewhere in the mid level of C tier kind of unit as well. Like getting just an extra free CV here, infantry unit is nice, but yeah, that puts them there. And then we have our tier list, and we have to zoom out quite a bit to get that all on here. But yeah, we get it like this, right? This is the tier list we got. If we zoom in here a bit and go slowly down. SAS, Gurkha Rifle, Screen Beret, Dash Commandancy in S tier. A lot of good A tier units, a lot of B tier infantry, decent amount of C tier, and yeah, fair share of D tier units here as well. So yeah, let me know down below what do you think about all of this. And see you all in the next one, guys. This was a long one, but it was absolutely a blast to go through all of this as well.